and we are now recording. Again, folks, my name is Jay Stansel. I'm on the board of the Benefits Law Center. I had a 26-year career as a public defender, and during that career, came to know Alex Doolittle and the Benefits Law Center as a way of thinking more holistically about my work as an attorney. And the question that I and my colleagues began to ask is what happens to my client, our clients, once we're done with their case. They do terrific work. I've been happy to be on the board for, I think, a little over 3 years now. I am the moderator, but you're not going to hear much from me except the beginning and the end. By way of housekeeping, this webinar will be recorded, and so you'll get a link to the recording of this webinar after we've completed it, so you can review this at your leisure. And I guess the chat function, I'm sure most of you have dealt with Zoom, but there is a chat function at the bottom of your screen, should be at least the bottom of my screen. And you can type your chat questions in there, and we will monitor that. So be sure to send it to everybody, not just the hosts and panelists, so that everybody can see your question. And we will keep track of that and pause several times during the presentation to get to your questions. So feel free to throw whatever is not getting covered in there or ask for clarification. Finally, this webinar, of course, is free, and we're really happy to work with the community and educate folks about what we do and also about the system and how you might fit into advocacy on Social Security issues. However, we would love to have your donations, and Haley will input into the chat the 2 different ways you can donate today in response to this webinar and get further involved with our organization. So with that, I just want to introduce our 2 panelists today. Alex Doolittle is the executive director of BLC since July of 2009, and she's represented hundreds of people in Social Security matters as directing attorney at BLC. Alex graduated from Pacific Lutheran University with a BA in Women's Studies and Anthropology, and from the University of North Dakota School of Law. Alex utilizes her law degree as a tool to give voice to individuals and entities that traditionally have not had a voice in the law, and especially through her work here at BLC. She's worked to help clients stand up for their rights in state and federal court, as well as in administrative venues to enforce the First Amendment, the ADA, Washington Growth Management Act, Washington Shoreline Management Act, and most importantly for our work today, the Social Security Act. Alex Strout is a paralegal working at Benefits Law Center. It began in June of 2020, like right in the middle of the pandemic. He has a political science degree from the University of Oklahoma before moving to Seattle to pursue his Master's of Social Work at the University of Washington. Alex has experience working for various social service organizations, all focused on supporting the basic needs of people living in poverty. The best part of working for Alex for BLC is connecting with clients and the community to support their abilities to overcome barriers to economic justice. So welcome both, and thank you all for attending. We have many people here already. I'll turn it over to Alex and Alex to take it away. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate that introduction. Yeah, so thank you all for joining us on this webinar today. Welcome to the space. This is BLC Presents Navigating Social Security and the BLC Basics. So let's see. Just a little bit about our agenda. We really see this webinar as an opportunity to reach out to those of you who are doing direct service in social services, to learn a little bit more about how Social Security works, what Social Security is doing right now during COVID, What do benefits look like? How does that work? What your clients may be seeing in terms of their benefits, all that kind of stuff. Some common Social Security problems and cases as you are working with your clients, what you will expect to see are problems, Social Security problems. And then to talk about a little bit about what we do and how we support your clients and our clients in overcoming their Social Security problems and getting the benefits that they deserve. So we'll follow through this. Like I said, this is the basics. So we know that you all come with different levels of understanding of Social Security. So some of this might be review for you. A lot of you may already know a lot of this stuff, but some of you might, this is your first experience working with Social Security problems or clients with Social Security benefits. And so we wanted to just get everybody to the same spot by the end of this. So it will be, you know, the basics, as I mentioned, but we see this as the first one and possibly more webinars, more trainings to explain how Social Security works. So this is well received and it goes well today. You can look forward to some more of these to walk through all of your clients, our clients as the community's Social Security problems. So yeah, with that, I'll turn it over to Alex.
Great, thanks, Alex. It's a little confusing for all of those of you who are listening because we're both Alex, but just, you know, Alex D, Alex S, however you want to do it. Thanks for the introduction, Jay, and for your board service, and to Haley for organizing this. We're going to start with big picture, the big part of the funnel, and then we'll get down into the weeds. We're not going to go too far into the weeds today. Like Alex said, that's for later, but the big part of the funnel is here in front of you. So, you know, hearkening back to those sort of civic lessons, I want to frame this in general knowledge, right? So the Social Security Administration is an administrative agency as opposed to a branch of government. It's promulgated by a branch of government, either the executive branch or legislative branch. And so other administrative agencies that probably all of us deal with are DSHS is another administrative agency that would be state, but Social Security is a federal administrative agency, and it actually didn't become its own independent agency right away. So with the New Deal that FDR signed into place in 1935, which was a whole host of acts, right? A whole host of different things to help a labor force. And one of those, you know, acts was the Social Security Act. And it wasn't, like I said, originally an agency, it was just a board, and was later, you know, many changes came along the way. In 1946, it was renamed the Social Security Administration. It was still housed under the Health and Human Services umbrella at that time. And it wasn't until 1995 that the Clinton administration pulled it out and made it its own agency. There's an important piece here that I think it's important to acknowledge, and we've been talking a lot about recently at Benefits Law Center, is that it wasn't until, you know, the Act was signed in 1935, it wasn't until the 1950s that agricultural workers and domestic workers became eligible to start accruing work credits and therefore receiving Social Security. And there's some pretty clear ties there, right, to structural and institutional racism and sort of the legacy and roots of slavery, preventing agricultural workers and domestic workers from being able to gain purchase. And that's really, you know, left a lasting multi-generational impact. And it was changed in the 50s. So a broader collection of jobs performed were, as of the 1950s, allowed to start accruing work credits, and therefore folks could draw Social Security, but it was late and very recent, frankly. But it is the most effective anti-poverty program that we have in the United States. It's a really big agency. It's 60,000 employees, 10 regional offices, and 1,230 field offices. And we have an office in the metro downtown area here in Seattle. There's one in Kent, one in Burien, one in Bellevue, one in Linwood, one in North Seattle, and one in Everett. And Tacoma, you know, it goes out from there, but that's our King County service area. So next slide, which I think is yours. Go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, what does the Social Security Administration do? So as Alex mentioned, it is the largest anti-poverty program. So it is, you know, federally run, and it's a financial safety net for lots of people in this country and almost all of our clients that we interact with as well. So they provide disability benefits, both SSI, SSDI, or disability, you know, we'll talk about the differences between those two. Retirement benefits for people who pay into the system, as Alex mentioned, that was broadened in the 50s, and now most people have access to that. And also provides survivors benefits for spouses or kids of people who were eligible for benefits but have passed on. So and other benefits as well, it's very broad. Almost lots of the sort of benefits that we're talking about get lumped into Social Security, and so we'll go through some of those as we go. And then of course, they administer Social Security numbers. So the way that you keep track of your long-term, you know, obviously taxes and paying into the system that you then are rewarded at retirement, but also Social Security cards, which are important for, as you know, the clients that you work with, everything that they do. And so, you know, that's another thing to keep in mind when talking with Social Security, and you know, how we fit into all of this is that those things are needed and you know, have to be reproduced as things happen to them. So yeah. So I wanted to talk about a little bit about how Social Security has changed since COVID. I'm going to get out of the sun real quick. So as Jay mentioned in my introduction, I actually started at BLC during COVID, so in June of last year in 2020. So I only know how Social Security works during COVID. I've been told about how it worked before, but I just want to give an update at that. So as most of you know, the local SSA field offices are closed for in-person drop-by appointments, are only available on limited appointment basis only. So, there's a, here on the slide, you can see it says SSA EM 21056. And so that is a reference to the, basically what the policy that Social Security has provided to field offices to determine when they should allow appointments to happen in person. And so that really talks about, it's really limiting about the appointments for emergency purposes only, it says, but also to review documents that are needed in order to determine benefits and things like that. So these are documents, passports, and all sorts of identifying documents that would, you know, nobody would want to send to the mail or are unreplicable to be processed. And so these are one of the most, thankfully this, that has changed recently. When I first started, they weren't even processing these kind of documents in appointments. They were doing them virtually through the mail, which made it really hard for our clients to you know, turn in documents, you know, IDs, passports, all that sort of thing. and obviously complicated that process. So they're now allowing appointments. Every office is a little bit different how they do it. The field offices determine for themselves. And so it's kind of important just to know a little bit about who, if you're working with a client, what field office they're working with. And so the second portion here says, you know, there's a link there that's you can go to that, putting in your client's address and determining what field office that is. And I think the best method that we have found is just reaching out to the field office to determine how they're scheduling appointments, if you need to schedule an appointment, or how they are. Some of the field offices right now do have drop boxes where you can turn important documents in. Some of them are having appointments, like I mentioned, and some of them don't have either. So currently, I know the Bellevue office doesn't do either of those. So it's a field by field office process, and it's important to know kind of where your clients are at and what field office is willing to do. So last thing is a hearings office. We'll talk about how the hearings work in a minute. So I'll leave that for Alex, but right now for almost all of the hearings, there's an option to do a telephone or a Teams and Microsoft Teams option to do, which is video. And so those are how the hearings are being conducted currently. So obviously you need technology to do that, which we help our clients with. But also if a client we have some clients that are have a desire to wait to appear in person after COVID, and that just means that their case is being delayed until Social Security makes that determination. So, and lastly, Social Security is relying heavily on their website to process appeals, since a lot of the case managers that work at Social Security are working from home. They're really pushing people to use the website to both apply, to process things, to send in documents such as pay stubs and whatnot. So this is, you know, heavily on this, which complicates things for our clients in particular.
Okay, so Social Security has, to really boil it down to simple terms, types of benefits that are not related to disabilities, and types of benefits that are related to disabilities. And you're going to have cases and clients that fall into both of those categories. And so first, let's briefly talk about non-disability benefits. So some clients will just refer to this as Social Security. Sometimes you'll hear people refer to it as Title II benefits. That literally just means Chapter 2 of the Social Security Act, right? Just the language of the Act. Chapter 2 is retirement benefits. There's also supplemental security income, and that can be received when you turn 65, even if you don't have a disability. So if you haven't paid into the system enough to receive retirement benefits, you can receive SSI as an older individual. Spousal benefits. So if you are a person who, or you have a client who did not work outside of the home, or did but not as much as their spouse, then it's possible that their retirement benefits would be coming out of their spouse's earnings, past earnings. And so spousal benefits is a thing in Social Security, and then survivor's benefits. And so if somebody lives with a disability or becomes deceased, then the person who survives that individual, immediate family members, not extended family members, can draw from that person's Social Security earnings in order to live and survive. And so those are non-disability type benefits. And I'm going to guess that in particular, for those of you who are, that this will be, those of you who are caseworkers in particular for housing, that these are going to be, you're going to see this less because it's easier for Social Security to make a decision on these benefits. They don't get hung up and there's not as much of an issue in making decisions about this. So next slide, please. These are the types of disability benefits. Supplemental security income, SSI, Social Security disability income, SSDI, and disabled adult child benefits. A lot of clients are just going to refer to these, any number of these, as Social Security. Social Security cut me off. I'm not receiving my disability. I'm not receiving my Social Security. They might know that they're receiving SSI. They might know that they're receiving SSDI. But we're, as you're sort of listening to someone and trying to identify what the issue set is, you'll want to dig a little bit further to figure out which benefit program they're receiving benefits under. So SSI, individuals who receive the SSI, it really is supplemental. So the thought is that a person should have $797 to be able to live on in any given month. If they have less money than that, then SSI is meant to supplement whatever they have to bring them up whole. And so individuals need to show that they have less money than $797 a month. So they need to meet that income requirement. They also need to show that they have less than $2,000 in their bank account. So there's a limit on the number of resources. So assets, right? Anything that can be turned into cash. And they also have to meet the medical eligibility requirements. They need to meet Social Security's definition of disabled. SSDI, there's no limitation on how much money you can have in your bank account. And you don't have to have a reduced amount of income coming in. But you do have to meet you do have to have the right number of work credits in your recent work history, and you also have to meet Social Security's definition of disabled. So yes, it says in there your work history is required for this type of benefit. Disabled adult child benefits is the same. You're drawing off of a parent's eligibility if you can prove that you were disabled before you were 22. And so younger individuals who are, between ages 22 and however old you want to go, but really between the ages of 22 and 30 is where we see this the most. They would be drawing off of a parent's earning record, which would be a bigger benefit than if they were to draw off of their own earning record. And I can see we've got questions here that we want to address. Does a client typically receive more monthly income when receiving disabled adult child benefits versus SSI? Yes. So like I had said, supplemental security income, to be eligible for that, they're looking at, have you met that threshold number of dollars yet, that $797 amount? If whatever benefits you're getting from Social Security are less than that, then you might get both types of benefits. So you might get disabled adult child benefits. You might also qualify for SSI on your own record. So you may be what we call a concurrent beneficiary. And so the question, the answer is it depends on how much the disabled adult child benefit will be. And so we're going to talk in a second about how you calculate the amount of benefit for disabled adult child benefits and SSDI. Does the client's parents' benefit reduce in that case? No, it does not. Okay, next slide. Okay, so here's the grid, and you guys are going to get these slides, but I wanted to put this stuff side by side so that we just talked about it, but I want you to look at it in a different way. Who qualifies for SSI? Who qualifies for SSDI? Okay, so here are the basic factors. You can pull this slide out, and you know, as you have a client and you're speaking with a guest or a client, you know, you want to know, okay, how old is this person? Is this person over the age of 65? So first thing I'm going to ask, because I need to sort in my head, are we talking about retirement benefits, or are we talking about disability benefits? Okay, and then I want to know whether or not the person meets Social Security's definition of disabled, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. And then my next question is going to be, has this person worked in the recent past? And if the answer to that is no, that I'm probably looking to see whether or not they're going to qualify for SSI. If they have worked in the recent past, then I want to know kind of how much have they earned, have they worked 5 of the last 10 years is really what I want to know. It doesn't have to be consecutive, but I'm going to kind of ballpark that. The only reason why I care whether or not, when I'm, you know, doing an intake and trying to help someone decide, paperwork's the same regardless of which program, but the client is always going to have questions about how much money they're going to get from Social Security. And this is how I never can answer that question right out of the gate, but I can oftentimes ballpark, well, what kind of job did you do? Did you earn a lot of money in your past jobs, and then there was an injury or something like that, and you're not able to do those jobs anymore? Then your benefit amount is going to be higher if you earned more than somebody who earned less. So have they worked, and how much? If they haven't worked a lot, or they haven't worked recently enough, then I'm also gonna ask some questions about whether or not they have any other income. Is Aunt Sally sending, you know, $600 a month for them to live on? Do they, are they working currently right now, but it's just not very much? Is there any income coming through the door, right? It has to be limited. And then I'm also going to ask if they have any resources. Do you have a house that you are not currently living in? Do you have a house in another country that you are not currently living in? Do you have multiple vehicles in your yard? Do you have a trust that someone's set aside from you that can be turned into cash? Do you have, you know, the list goes on and on, anything that could be turned into cash. And then I'm also going to want to know, and this is a topic for Social Security, you know, 200. This is the 100. Of course, we're going to do another one with more in-depth topics later. But I also want to know whether or not they're currently documented in the United States, because if they're not, then we have a sequencing of things that needs to happen first, and we're going to, you know, rope in some other legal services organizations to start helping with other government processes that need to happen while we put the Social Security piece on hold, right? And so, yeah, so that is, in a nutshell, the difference between the two programs. Alex. Oh, yes. So SSI, the current federal benefit rate, the total amount of SSI you can get in any given month is $797 as an individual. If you are 2 people who are eligible for benefits in a household, then it's $1,191 currently for the household. And like I said, SSDI is based on past earnings. Next slide, yeah. This, so what are the types of Social Security problems that people are going to bring to you? They're either going to need to get help getting onto Social Security benefits, and that can mean that they need to apply for the first time, or they need to apply again because the last time they applied was a long time ago. Or they need to appeal, they got a denial, Social Security says no, and so they need to appeal that notice. So they either need help getting on to benefits, any one of those types of things, or they're already on benefits and something goes sideways. Either they get a notice in the mail that says, we paid you too much money, or we're not going to pay you money anymore, or you've been receiving benefits for a while, we need to review whether you're still eligible. Those are the three things that Social Security gets hung up on in these cases. And again, these are just for disability cases. Next slide. These are post-entitlement cases. So this is, these are the problems that can occur and how you address them. So for an overpayment, get a notice in the mail that says, we paid you too much in monthly benefits. There are two things that you can do to help a client respond to that. If the client disagrees with the notice, they can either say, no, I disagree with the fact that there's even an overpayment. I didn't ever get that money. Or they can say, oh, shoot, I did get that money, but it wasn't my fault. I didn't know the rule and I can't afford to repay it. And so those are two different types of appeal. Reconsideration is the first one and a waiver is the second one. And in our 2.0 class, we will talk through how to fill out those forms. If the client doesn't disagree and can repay it, they can set up a repayment plan with Social Security. In a termination or a cessation case, what the notice that comes to the client in that type of a scenario is, we believe that you're no longer eligible for benefits. And it's a real clear one-page form that the client needs to file in order to appeal that. There's lots of reasons why that might happen. For SSI, it might be because the client's working. It might be because they have excess resources or that Social Security finds out about, or they have money in their bank account that Social Security finds out about. They do a cross-reference with banking. It might be that Social Security thinks they're no longer disabled, that they were out of the country, or that they were incarcerated for longer than a calendar month. For SSDI, we don't care about income and resources. It's all around whether or not the client worked or didn't work, and whether Social Security thinks that they were they are no longer disabled. And then the other piece is incarceration. And a continuing disability review, like I had said, the integrity built into the Social Security system is that every person that receives disability benefits receives a review of their eligibility every 2 to 7 years. This is a regular process, and what's really important is that clients respond to the paperwork and don't say, I dealt with that with Social Security for a long time trying to get eligible for benefits. They have all the information that they need about me. Nope. We got to fill out all of the paperwork that comes to us. And that can be pretty traumatic for somebody who already went through a tough process. Somebody would know that they were overpaid because they got a notice in the mail from Social Security. Or if they don't receive mail or they have a hard time receiving mail because their benefits decreased or stopped. What appeal form? So many questions. I love it. Okay.
Yeah, Alex, I can't see the chat, so if you want to read some.
Oh, you can't? Okay, yeah. So the question I see here is, what appeal form should be used if the client believes that the overpayment is a result of a mistake by Social Security? So you can see there, and I will apologize for this crowded slide here. I've got, if the client disagrees, there's two ways to do it. The first form means this overpayment never happened. What Social Security said didn't happen. It's a one-page form number, and you can type any of these forms into Google. You can just type into SSA form 541. If they think, oh gosh, yep, that did happen, but it's not my fault and I can't afford to repay it, then it's the waiver form, and it's form number SSA form 632. And that's a much longer form. It's a 12-page form. Great question. Thank you. What appeal form should be used? Oh, I just answered that. Okay. Chris Louie, I'm going to have you email me and we're going to talk through that case question that you've got. Okay. And these cases are so fact specific that I want to be sure we're not missing anything. Okay, Danielle's question is, if they are Native and receive money from their tribe, does that get counted when looking at people's financial situation? All Social Security is going to look at all income. Some income is countable. Some income is not countable. It's excluded. And so there's a certain amount of money when received from tribal governments that is excluded up to a certain point, and then they start counting it. So it's a little bit complicated. It depends on the amount of money that is coming into the client. Usually it's not very much, and so we're usually able to show that it's excludable. Susan asked in the Q&A that some of her clients say they don't have to have reviews. They just have SSI or SSDI for life. What circumstances are these? Typically, I have not encountered that ever, except for in a situation where somebody has a certificate of blindness or a certificate of deafness, in which those cases, the review that Social Security does is pretty much automatic. Those are the only situations that I've heard that. Next slide. And I'm way over time here, so we're going a little bit slow, and this one is extra complicated. What this is, okay, don't freak out about this slide, you guys. We're gonna talk about the left-hand side first, and then we're gonna talk about the right-hand slide, and I'm gonna do it in 2 minutes. This left-hand side of this slide is the definition of disabled, which I had mentioned before. This first paragraph is when you're like, okay, well, you want to apply for Social Security benefits. Are you doing that because you're an older American, or are you doing that because you have a disability? Because I have a disability. Okay, now I'm going to pull out this definition. I'm like, okay, the client has to show that they have the inability to engage in substantial gainful activity, work, because they can't work because they have a medically determinable physical or mental impairment. So they have a diagnosis from a medical professional. And that is the thing that is preventing them from being able to work, to perform their past work or any work in the national economy. And that disability has to have lasted for 12 months or longer. And so that is a pretty high bar, y'all. That's a lot. Any work in the national economy. Doesn't matter if I was a software engineer and I got in an accident and I can't be a software engineer anymore. If you can still hold up a stop sign and turn it back and forth, then you can work and perform work in the national economy. It's not the work you were trained to do, but it's still work. Okay, that's all that thing on the left says. thing on the right, this image here is called the waterfall chart. What I wanted to show you, because there's a lot of misnomers around everyone gets denied at the first step of the appeals process. When someone applies for benefits, this data is from 2019, 37% of people who applied in 2019 were awarded benefits. And so it's not zero, right? But you can see as we're going up this chain, it is worth it to appeal these decisions, right? And because you can see once we get to the third stage, which is the hearing stage, the allowance percentages are going up, right? And so sticking with this process is super important, and you guys are a critical component to your clients staying engaged with this process. So probably a big question for you is, how do I help someone apply? How do I help someone appeal? How do I help them get a hearing? Those are the first three stages of this process. I've put in the slide the form number that you can type into Google, SSA form 8001. That's the application. It needs a wet signature, and it needs to go directly to the client's local office. How do you find the local office? You pull up that, I think it was Alex's first slide that he talked about what's going on in the COVID-19 for Social Security. You look up which is their local office by typing in their zip code into the office locator tool online. Send that form completed with a wet signature, hold on to a copy of it, to the local office. That's how you apply for Social Security benefits, if you can't do it online. Online, of course, is a preferred method. And I've given you the form numbers for every level of appeal here. That was more than 2 minutes, but go ahead, Alex. Next slide.
All right. So I'm going to go quickly through this one, actually. These are just some of the barriers you all are very well aware of, so don't need to talk to you about that. I do want to highlight the last few that are on here. So access to technology is important, mostly because, like I said, the hearings are being done on the phone or through Teams. And so that makes it important that we're getting connected. A lot of times we act as sort of a connector from our clients to the Social Security Administration. And so these access to technology is a big part that we can provide, and also understanding with the help from you all as caseworkers or case managers or working with clients in general, you're able to get us connected to them. So there's this process that technology has become really important since COVID. The other one is limited English proficiency. Social Security does provide some notices or letters in limited amounts of other languages, very limited emphasis on that. And so a lot of times, you know, being able to help a limited English proficient client work with Social Security and an interpreter is what we do many times with our clients. And so that's one of the biggest barriers that we're also facing, and a reason to work with our office. So let's see. But yeah, so just kind of how we approach our work, working with Social Security and with our clients, is we are here to be compassionate and build a trusting relationship with our clients. A lot of times Social Security cases take many years, not many years, many months, sometimes years, depending on the situation. So it is really building that relationship with them. They're sharing a lot of some very personal things, disability, their medical information with us. They're sharing their financial situation, housing situation. So it's really about, for us, building a relationship with them and working with both our attorneys and the other supports in their life to build that relationship, because we know it's a long relationship with them sometimes. So it's not a quick fix to their Social Security. So when we do that, we understand how long that process is. We also provide referrals to people, to our clients, especially as they need help with their own social supports. Then we have the Justice Bus, which is a bus that we have, an attorney runs and drives, started as a way to connect in South King County in particular, to drive directly to communities and do outreach there, where they could come onto the bus, clients could come on the bus and take care of a Social Security need immediately. Right now, the Justice Bus, due to COVID, is not running right now, but we are in the process of figuring out when that will happen, and moving forward to have the Justice Bus out in the community again. And then each of our attorneys have outreach locations in shelters, DSC, Chief Seattle Club, Mary's Place, Open Doors, that we do outreach at to directly work with clients on those. For a brief moment prior to Delta becoming really serious, we're doing outreach again. And as soon as we feel comfortable to do that again, we will be back out doing outreach. And so those are really important places to connect with clients directly. And then again, interpretive services and every language that we have, that's something that we offer and we utilize on the regular. All right, so I'm just going to walk through kind of what the process is like for us at BLC, just so that you all can kind of understand what it's like when you refer people to us in particular. So we offer 3 levels of service. This is advice and counsel, brief service, or full representation. This is, as Alex mentioned earlier, is really like a funnel. So we, as we have attorney time and in general staff time to work with clients, each of these are more intensive. So as you can imagine, advice and counsel is doing an intake with a client, which lasts about 30 or 40 minutes. And it is, as Alex mentioned, a lot of those questions that she mentioned that when she talks to clients that she's asking is what we're asking at the intake level. You know, what's your financial situation, your housing situation, disability and impairments that you have? Are you applying for Social Security? Is this an entitlement issue, which means also an overpayment or a cessation of your benefits? So we ask all those questions in the intake and then determine the level of service after that. So advice and counsel is a set aside time for attorneys and clients to talk and go over the case and provide what the attorney sees about the situation and how they would handle the situation. It is still an advice and counsel. Clients are ultimately responsible to follow through on that and do their work, and it's really reserved for people who have the most ability to follow through with Social Security on their issues. Brief service is sometimes we will ghostwrite forms for people and send them in to help them with that process, especially if they're having trouble connecting with Social Security. And a lot of times limited English proficiency is here as well. Brief service where we will we'll fill out the form for them, send it in, but we will not represent the client. And so any follow-up is with the client. So that's kind of what it means to provide brief service. Full representation is, as it sounds, representation. So we will become their attorney in their process with Social Security. We will fully represent them in any of their needs that deal with Social Security. That also means completing paperwork, tracking deadlines, getting medical, financial, or other evidence to support their case. And also means that Social Security will send us notices when things go wrong or information updates to our office directly. So we will have that just as soon as the clients do. So that's an important thing to remember as well, because if we're working with somebody and not in full representation, the clients will get their notices themselves and they will have to be responsible to contact Social Security or us for help again. But if they're full representation, we will get that and generally will be on top of that to respond and reach out to clients to move forward with the case or the claim. So this is kind of just how it works here. So yeah, so in general, how we can help you all as you work with your clients is we're doing this training here, webinars in general, to talk about how Social Security works. I know almost a lot of your clients are going to deal with Social Security at some point in their process. So it's really valuable and appreciate that you all are here. We can answer any questions that you have about Social Security that you're unsure of. So as we know, we've given you a lot of information here today, so please reach out to me. Like I said, I'm the paralegal here, answer the front desk as well. Provide referrals here, or we provide referrals to our partners in the field. So yeah, it is really just a plea to call me if you're unsure about what to do, what the situation is, or how to respond to Social Security. You know, we are here to do all that, and we know, you know, have like the expertise in Social Security work, and so we can always do that for you. Obviously, right now we're in the process of hiring another attorney and another paralegal, so we are a little full at the seams, but as those processes come to an end, hopefully we'll have more availability to take on more clients as we go. So yeah, call me. I can help you figure out what needs to be done and work through your clients' Social Security problems. All right, I think we have a little bit of time for questions, so maybe just take a few real quick. I don't know, Alex, if you have any that are in the chat. Here's our contact information. I'll leave this up here. It has Alex's email there, my email as well, Alex S, and then our number and my number that you can reach out to if you have any needs.
Yeah, there was at least one question in the chat here. So,
Okay.
and I'm happy to connect with folks at any time. Feel free to reach out. But two questions in the chat. First one was about drug and alcohol use and whether or not that can be the basis of a Social Security claim. The answer is no. In 1990, thanks Clinton. In 1996, that became an unallowable basis for receiving Social Security benefits. And so what we do a lot of, in particular for those clients who do have use or abuse of drugs and alcohol, what we have to do is show that the disability that they are alleging, it can be separated from their drug and alcohol use. So we use whatever periods of sobriety that we can find in their record to try and bolster that argument. These arguments come up in a lot of our cases, and so we're pretty skilled in doing that. If this particular issue makes it harder for people to win at the first and second levels of the appeals process, which is why I always tell clients, do not give up and continue to appeal that, because once you get to a hearing, it might be easier to explain away the issue. The second question was whether or not we charge for our services. So all Social Security attorneys in the United States are bound to the Social Security Administration's statutory fee system. And that means that those cases that would generate a fee, and a fee is only generated out of past due benefits owed to a client. So if they apply today and they get approved today, then there's no past due benefit owed to that client. But if they apply in 2015 and they get approved today, then there's 6 years of back pay owed to that client. That's the portion of money that an attorney's fee comes out of. So we also do accept fees in our cases, but the cases that we take are not based on whether or not we get a fee. We try and take cases right at the application level. We don't wait until the hearing level, which is pretty common for attorneys to do, because then they know that there might be an attorney's fee in there. It's just a different model of doing business. So yeah, so we do, but obviously if there's no fee to be generated from a case, we still take the case and help the client. So if we refer a client to BLC, what number? You can use that number, 686-7252. Jay, take it away.
All right, I'm off mute. I'm back on video. There may still be some lingering questions that people have, we'll try to track you down, or you can just always just email one of the presenters here with that question if you didn't get it answered. So thank you, both Alexes. I'm really proud to be part of this organization on the board, and I learn something every time I have a meeting, every time I witness a presentation like this, and I think it's terribly important work. It's I call it a tip of the iceberg project, and that's because even though there was a question about Tacoma, we don't yet deal with Tacoma. We could deal with Tacoma if we build up the capacity to deal with Tacoma. Everybody needs us, and within King County itself, only a small fraction of the people who really could use our efforts become our clients, because we have limits on what we can do. So we continue to build capacity, and we love reaching out to the community like you all. And this is really happy that you attended. This was free, but we'd love for you to donate to us as well. And in the tail end of the chat, I've inputted the link to how to donate to the BLC. That's in the last slide as well. You can also simply text the number 44321 with the text "give to BLC" as on the slide there, and you can do it just from your phone. Lastly, we're about to have our annual fundraiser tomorrow. It's a virtual fundraiser again because of the pandemic. So we'd really welcome you then. It should be a good time, very informational, inspirational, and there are jokes from little kids and big kids as well. The big kids you may recognize. So we will get you the participants here. We'll send you an email to this recorded webinar, and I think we should be able to just send you the slide deck. Alex, do you think that'll work, so that they can print off the slides? Yeah, we'll talk about that. In any case, for sure, you'll have a link to the recording that we've made of the webinar, and we thank you for your interest. And there's already when's the date for 2.0 determined yet? Stay tuned. I'm really impressed by the depth and the interest, and also the detail of some of your questions. I think there's a lot of room for us to build the next level of presentation coming your way. So stay in touch with our website, which is benefitslawcenter.org, and we will do our best to get that next step up there. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Alex, thank you very much. Type in yes or no if you want to join us for 2.0. Alex, any final thoughts that you have? Okay, keep those yeses coming. Love to see that. And thank you so much for the work that you all do in our community.
Yes.
We're all in this together. We're partners in this movement to treat our neighbors with dignity and justice. So thank you. I'm going to sign off at this point. So.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.